Three friends don shark-repelling ankle devices as they take to the surf off Reunion Island. The fourth friend does not wear one, and he's about to suffer the consequences. Known as Shark Highway, the four young men ignore all warnings and paddle out, right into the shark-infested waters. It's a decision that'll cost one of them their life. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. For all your outdoor essentials, visit fierceoutdoor.com. We specialize in gear that keeps you safe and prepared for any wildlife adventure. Gear up for your next trip into the wild at fierceoutdoor.com, where safety meets adventure. Located off the east coast of Madagascar lies the French territory of Reunion Island. It's a volcanic island steeped in mountainous, rugged terrain and fringed by golden, sandy beaches. But the perception of beauty is in stark contrast to what lies hidden in the surrounding waters. Although the island is just 970 square miles, it's one of the most common places for shark attacks in the whole world. Despite being so small in size, it's believed that 16% of the world's shark attacks happen there, and worryingly, these seem to be on the rise. A change in water temperature is drawing large sharks closer to shore, and there is one particular stretch of coastline on Reunion Island that is particularly dangerous. Surfers and swimmers are strongly advised not to enter the water. Signs are erected all along the beaches warning people of the dangers, and yet people still go swimming or surfing in the seas. This hotspot for shark attacks doesn't seem to deter people. This is exactly what happened when 28-year-old Frenchman Kim Mahbouli was visiting the island with his friends. The surf was too good to pass up the opportunity. However, whilst his friends at least took some precautions against shark attacks by wearing shark deterrent devices on their ankles, for some reason Kim did not. After pulling on their wetsuits, they grabbed their boards and headed into the Indian Ocean. They had chosen to surf from the small seaside village of Saint-Loup. The place was known as Turtle Spot on the island's west coast. It's one of the best places in the world to view sea turtles, and there is a center situated there called Kelonia, which is a public aquarium and observatory dedicated to the education about the conservation of sea turtles. Kim and his three friends ignored official warnings of the dangers of sharks and began surfing at the prohibited spot. The seas around Reunion were changing from the warmer summer to the cooler winter months, a seasonal change in the conditions that attracts sharks closer to shore. As the four friends hit the waves late in the afternoon, a shark was swimming just below them. It was hunting in the area and immediately spotted the shadowy figures above it. Kim was about to become the 24th person to be attacked off Reunion's waters in just 8 years in what has been dubbed as Shark Highway. The seas between Australia and South Africa are a hotspot for sharks and lie just south of the island. Shark swam upwards, powering through the water column. Its eyes were fixed on the surfer sitting on the surface. Kim was unaware of the predator surging toward him. He continued to bob about on his surfboard, glancing over his shoulder at the waves as they built behind him. His friends were doing the same thing just feet away. Suddenly, he felt a sharp tug on his left leg and immediately looked down into the dark eyes of an enormous shark. It had torpedoed upwards and crashed through the surface of the Indian Ocean, grabbing Kim's leg in its jaws. Its head was visible above the water, a terrifying sight that sent shockwaves through Kim. But there was no time to dwell on it. With one tug, Kim was pulled underwater. His three friends saw the commotion. The water was boiling and splashing where Kim had been just moments before. His surfboard bounced up and down as Kim was dragged underneath it, his ankle still attached to the ripcord. They swam over to him, but he had disappeared into the depths. They peered into the water, but they couldn't see him. The shark's razor-sharp teeth sliced through the cord, and it snapped. After a frantic search for their friend, but with no sign of him, the three terrified friends made a dash for dry land in a bid to get help. Shouting as they paddled furiously to the shore, some eyewitnesses could see that they were in trouble and called the emergency services. When word got out of the shark attack, lifeguards rushed to the spot in their speedboat. It was a race against time to find Kim. Under the water, he had battled. The shark held him firmly in its powerful jaws, biting down with a bite force of 1,300 psi. Kim tried to free his leg. He could feel himself fading. His lungs were bursting. He looked up at the surface, shards of sunlight penetrating into the water. The shark thrashed its head from side to side, and the agonizing pain ripped through Kim's body. Then seconds later, his leg came off. The shark swam away with Kim's left leg in its mouth, and the surfer bobbed up to the surface and took in a lungful of air, but he had lost a significant amount of blood. He was fading fast. The adrenaline was hiding the worst of the pain, but his heart rate was slowing and his blood pressure plummeting dangerously low. He was losing consciousness. His femoral artery had been severed, and he was now floating in the Indian Ocean just offshore in a cloud of red. It engulfed him. Moments later, a speedboat tore through the water. The hum of the engine went unnoticed by the 28-year-old as he closed his eyes and let his head flop backwards. The crew from the lifeboat spotted him and dragged him from the water. He was pale and unresponsive. He had lost his left leg from the upper thigh down. The shark had sliced through his muscle and bone, severing it from his body with one bite. They rushed Kim to shore, and he was loaded into the back of an ambulance. Sadly, the young surfer could not be revived, and he lost his life that day. His friends and the locals in the small fishing village watched on as the ambulance drove away from the scene. They were in shock. But they weren't strangers to the attacks around Reunion Island. It seemed that despite the swimming and surfing bans, people still weren't heeding the warnings. The turquoise waters were so inviting, and the island appeared to be paradise on earth, but its hidden dangers were the stuff of nightmares. The following year in 2020, there were 57 shark attacks in Reunion's waters. 10 of those proved fatal. But what is driving the ever-increasing shark attacks in those particular seas? It's worrying that attacks like this are happening more and more often. Experts believe that either there is a change in the number of sharks in the area or a change in their behavior. Transforming sea temperatures are largely blamed for the excessive shark attacks off Reunion, while in other parts of the world, shark experts are quick to point out that human attacks are usually cases of mistaken identity. Dr. Blake Chapman, a marine biologist who examines shark neuroscience for her PhD, doesn't think that this is always the case. The fact that there are so many attacks off Reunion Island, and the nature of the attacks as well, suggests to her that the sharks are deliberately hunting humans. And that makes for a very scary prospect.